welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we are covering, for its 20th anniversary, David Finchers Seven.
Yes, not to be confused with our new show, which is like a Channel 5 thing called Seven, where we go down the River Severn on a narrowboat.
One of those beautiful fishing trips, those shows that everybody loves.
Yeah, those shows everybody loves.
Those long, quaint British shows where everyone in America probably would be like, that's really interesting.
Yes.
And most people over here would be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, the reason why I say it is because I always just instantly spell Seven, like the River Severn. So when I was trying to find this film, I was just putting in Seven, and it was just bringing up.
Yeah, I only just put that spelling together in my head and went, "What are you on about, the River Severn?" And I was like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, so I was just I just kept finding stuff like articles about the River Severn. I was like, where to find Seven film, and it was just like the River Severn is located in the southwest. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough.
And if you don't understand any of those references, Google it.
Yes, Google it. And hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review.
Seven. So to be fair, this is one that's been on that I've always wanted to do this film. I've always, obviously, for a long time, been a huge fan of this film. There's no cushion in the fact that I think it's a pretty classic film. I mean, it's one of the most renowned, especially for twists of the time.
Definitely.
For a film, this is one of those films actually where I know that I knew the twist before I watched it. Though it didn't make it any worse.
Yeah.
This was just one of those films that was from the 90s where I grew up young enough before I got to see it.
I feel like it's the same for me.
Yeah, that I didn't get that opportunity to learn about. It's like what is it? Another Kevin Spacey one, The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
I knew that he was Kaiser Soze.
It's interesting because it was it was such a big cultural phenomenon that I remember when I was young, my brothers going on about Seven, you know? Yeah. And I remember watching it after school and getting home and kind of knowing most of the stuff that happened. I knew about some of the kills already because people would be talking about them.
Yeah.
But watching it's a different beast, you know?
I mean, the most thing I find most interesting actually about this film, and kind of what makes it so brilliant in its own way, is the fact that this is a film where if you ask a lot of people, when people have been asked about what they actually see in the film and they see happening, most people remember things happening that never happened in this film. So most people remember as if there is a scene as if John Doe himself, you get to see something happening, someone dying.
Yeah.
You never see that happen, and you don't see that happen in this film. There's never that situation in this film. The same way that everyone always said, there's a lot of people who are certain that you get to see Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
Yes.
And you never see her head, but it's one of those, and I've got that because I literally think all the time, I know that it doesn't happen, in my head there's an image of Gwyneth Paltrow's head in the box.
There is, yeah. There is.
If you go and search for Gwyneth Paltrow right now, you'll find she's been missing for several days.
She's been missing for
That's how I got that picture of Gwyneth Paltrow's head in the box.
That you spliced it in yourself.
In the 90s, people would have hated that. Nowadays, they might not be so bothered.
No. Yeah, she was
all that goop.
Yeah, all that.
Whatever it is, goop or whatever she is.
Goop candles. Yeah, I agree with you because I seem to remember there being and I think it's very clear when you watch it that Saw was kind of looking at the homework of Seven. You know, it's very kind of inspired by it. You get this kind of unnamed shithole of a city that's kind of plagued by horrid people basically. Even the police are horrid. Everybody's fucking horrid. But more so, I seem to remember there being more of those things from Saw. You know, when especially the earlier ones, where you get the fast shots of people being
in traps or caught in something.
And I seem to remember there being shots of particularly lust and pride. I remember seeing shots of them, but then when I watched it back, it is definitely it's a lot more kind of leaving up things to your imagination, which I think it's a masterstroke of
That's
the film.
That's what I mean. It's like Greed, for instance. I swear I've got the image of the guy like being forced to eat on a table, but this doesn't happen, which is kind of what makes it. It's kind of what makes a lot of these things great, that you never really see it. It's like the Psycho effect. You believe that you see the knife going into Marion Crane, and you never do.
No.
Like, you think you do because it's the way that he masterfully shot it, but you never actually see any of that stuff. And yeah, like as you said, like films. I mean, so many films have been inspired by this. Like this film. I mean, the most recent Batman is 100%.
I was thinking that I could see that in.
It's the closest you could have to like Saw without basically putting like Alfred's head in a box.
Yeah.
I mean, to Seven without and Saw. I mean, Saw almost is the closest without, except. The difference with Saw is that they show it almost. That's the difference. It's almost like more is that they show it, and then that's kind of thing. And that's the first Saw for it is especially like you always forget that the first Saw is actually a very different kind of film than the rest of the rest of the films, which kind of start to veer more and more into maybe the ridiculous levels of like gore and gore porn. Whereas the first one is fairly held back in comparison, fairly about the twist.
And it kind of does almost have a similar. It's quite similar to Seven.
Yeah. This is as a film, like I mean, the other thing that's the difference is the actors that you've got in this film. I mean, you've got Brad Pitt at his absolute peak.
I forget how good Brad Pitt is, because I always see Brad Pitt as being one of those people who kind of became a bit like Robert De Niro, you know, where they just got very typecast, and they were doing kind of this. He was doing his Brad Pitt shtick, the same like George Clooney is doing his George Clooney shtick. You know, they kind of like became bigger than.
Well, they became so big that you got used to him just being this kind of like he's this cool dude.
Like,
he's the ultimate like cool guy kind of thing, like laid back, I'm chill, man.
And you're like, he's not an actor.
I mean? He's not McConaughey level of that, like, but he was that kind of level of like. He'd still normally make like pretty good films, but he was quite often that guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. He was the Ocean's 11 guy. You know,
that's
like that.
The Ocean's 11.
They all did that. That's kind of what happened. They did that in the early 2000s, and suddenly they were all just like, you're just the cool guys of Ocean's 11, 12, 13, and so many more coming along the way.
Whereas in this, I feel like he plays this kind of really explosive. Trying to make a name for himself.
Yeah. Well, this was the typecast. This was the film that he was actively chasing because he didn't want to be typecast.
Okay.
Like he was trying to get that. So a lot of people say this is not only the film that kind of saw people see a different side to him, because he'd been original. I think Brad Pitt was originally like Thelma and Louise, where he was very much the eye candy, and everyone looked at him like, you know, he's the hot dude. He's the hot dude. And he didn't want to be that. He wanted to be in like dramas and stuff.
Yeah, he did Interview with a Vampire.
He did some other like films around the time that he was trying to get away from that. So he was trying to do more dramas. He was trying to get away from some of the like more like comedy or romantic kind of roles he got. Because the weird thing is, you always think of Brad Pitt, but Brad Pitt is actually someone who's not really ever really done rom-com kind of thing. When it seems like the guy that would be like the ultimate rom-com, but he's actually actively always been like, I don't want to do that. And like, you know, and like Clooney, he's like, I'll do that.
Clooney will do it.
He's like that. You got bat nipples for me? I'll do it.
Clooney will do it. He can get them
like,
nips out.
But the weird thing is that Clooney was still able to be like both sides of it. Whereas I feel like if Brad Pitt had gone down that route, he would have been absolutely stuck in that route. Yeah. So like he made good choices, even if like half the time he seems an incredibly critical person of everything of himself, to be honest, because all the stuff he talks about, the films and stuff, he's always as if like it was never that good on that thing. And I think you said about like Interview with a Vampire, and I think he fucking hated that film. He hated like doing that film. He hated being in that film.
It's an odd film.
I think it was like an odd, but yeah. So you got Brad Pitt kind of at the heat.
The heek?
The heek of his power. They're heeking up there. You know, he's heeking up there. I've just made up a word.
Your brain isn't working.
My brain isn't working today.
My body isn't working.
Rob has a cough that's going on. We've both been like ill or had others who are ill, so we've not really been able to record like in as many episodes recently. So we've had a little bit of a lull, a little bit of a break,
a bit of a hiatus.
And now we've tried to come back, and my brain's dead, and your chest is going to implode at any moment.
Yeah, there's like a 60% chance I just pass away. during the recording of this.
I mean, obviously, if you are listening to this, doing that classic subscribe.
Yeah.
But if you are listening to this, put the headphones on so when Rob coughs, it's directly in your ears. Because if that's your kink,
it could be. Yeah, some people do
coughing
like
in your face is your kink. Then just imagine his bearded, slobbery face coughing right into you, and that's your delicious little moment there.
And there's probably a sin in there that we can do lust. There's quite a lustful cough. If
He lusts for that. He envies for my chest.
I do.
But does not he's not full of bacteria anymore. And then we've got
Mr.
Morgan Freeman, who you always forget. Morgan Freeman, I always forget. You always think Morgan Freeman is just a timeless. He's always been huge. He's always been big. But again, this was kind of Morgan Freeman coming up as well. To be honest,
really?
He'd been in a lot of stuff before that, but he'd never really taken off. He was driving Miss Daisy and things like that. But it was things like Shawshank and Seven that made him the Morgan Freeman, the guy to go to. If you're having this kind of role, you go to Morgan Freeman.
He was the Morg man.
Because they weren't the original choices for this film. It's a little bit of a factor. So the original choice for Brad Pitt's role was Denzel. Denzel
I can see Denzel.
I think he would have done well in this role as well. To be honest, he would have killed that role. But Brad Pitt does a good job too. And Morgan Freeman originally, they had people like Al Pacino was in mind. I think Al Pacino was the one who I just don't see as much.
I don't know. I feel like I'm thinking Pacino. At the time, I'm thinking Heat.
I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm not as big. I'm not a huge Pacino fan though. All I can think of is going, don't look in the box. Don't look in the box, man.
Don't look in the box, man.
Honest, Pacino of that era wouldn't have had the gravitas that Morgan Freeman. Pacino would have probably shot him.
Yeah, probably.
Pacino would have shot. Pacino would have been a younger Pacino would have been perfect for the other role.
Yeah.
But not the. The stoic kind of someone who's on the way out kind of thing. I just don't see him in the role that Freeman does in this role. Freeman's role in this, I'm trying to think of another actor who actually could have made this work in that kind of. He's so kind of. He seems wise, but he seems. He's it's like the perfect Morgan Freeman.
It kind of is.
I literally can't think of many other actors of the same time, of being big actors Pacino, De Niro.
Yeah.
Those kind of actors. Joe Pesci.
Dan
none
Aykroyd.
of those. Yeah, Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd
but none of those I think could actually have pulled off the same kind of gravitas that you get with Freeman here. And then you've got a few other. You've got obviously Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah,
who was actually really oddly inspired casting when you think about it. She was also somewhat gaining popularity around the time, and the odd thing is that although she has a few scenes in the film, she's not actually in the film very much.
No, she really isn't, is she?
But I think that kind of helps because when we get to that notorious final twist, if it had been someone who you didn't I think the audiences had no clue who they were. It could almost somewhat they'd get the emotional value, but it's somewhat fall flat. But at that point in time, Gwyneth Paltrow was pretty up and coming, quite a big known kind of star kind of thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that I think helps the little it's odd if you somewhat know the actress, you know what she's like in other films and stuff like that. You know what she's like. I think that helps with those kind of moments sometimes. Whereas if it's just an actress you've never seen before and you have no idea who it is kind of thing, it's hard to bond to that moment. So I feel it would be shocking regardless, but I think having an actress playing a small role in this makes it kind of work well without being too noticeable throughout the thing. But she's really good in her roles, especially I think the scenes that she plays with Morgan Freeman.
I think she plays a good kind of counterpoint because the main detectives are very much quite opposite each other. As soon as Somerset, Mr. Morgan Freeman, meets Mills, Mr. Brad Pitt, they kind of have an instant dislike into each other. And I seem to remember, because this is the first time I've probably watched this film in 15 years maybe, I seem to remember it not being a buddy cop, but I seem to remember them not clashing so much.
Yeah.
But they basically, right until the very end, they clash most of the time consistently.
Until pretty much, I think, until they basically have worked out who it is.
Yeah.
Until they basically know, they find the photographs towards, basically the beginning of the third act.
Yeah.
until that point, they basically are constantly just disliking of each other. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'm not so sure if it's for free, but I know that Mills definitely just. He's
Oh
just
no,
like,
Somerset.
you are out to get me, kind of thing.
Somerset dislikes him like instantly because he's saying that he transferred to this city and stuff like that, and he's like, you're not ready.
Yeah.
And there's all these points throughout, like, which I think is so good for the characters when Somerset is so like diligent. He's reading like Dante's Inferno and he's reading all of these books, and then Mills is just getting like the Cliff Notes and isn't just reading any of it, you know. And there's just points where you could just tell that he just doesn't think he should be working this case. He doesn't think he's ready for it.
Yeah.
And it all kind of builds up to this idea that Mills is really reckless, and you think Somerset is, like you said, stoic and he's doing the right things, but then as it goes on, you find out that even Somerset isn't squeaky clean. You know, he's a little bit crooked as well, because that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to with Brad Pitt's character is the fact that it's just like it's the one thing that kind of throughout the film where he's got a temper that just builds and just keeps going. You can see how he is really this young, wants to prove himself, and he's so adamant to prove himself. He seems in that position, and he so needs to be like what is I'm blanking on what is Morgan Freeman's character's called?
Detective Somerset.
Somerset, yeah. He's so like and at times it's almost like he so wants to have like the the view that everyone else has of Somerset. He wants everyone to think of him like that kind of thing. Like he's got this real like constant like he might not like him, but he seems to want to almost be that level of like I'm going to be that kind of detective, but I can't do it because you keep trying to block me. And Somerset is obviously on the note of like you are definitely not ready. And I think it's one of those questions that like especially with this being the 20 years, and a lot of people I'm sure have seen this, and if you haven't rewatched it in a long time, it's worth a rewatch at this point. Because it is something where the whole film now that you know where it goes, the whole film you're looking at it from a different like lens of like actually you can see why Somerset may be right. You can also see why Somerset's actions may somewhat cause problems within Mills' character and what he's doing. That maybe if at the beginning he comes across a little bit more like willing with him, maybe Mills would not act out quite as much as he does. He is constantly acting up, but he's constantly acting up because he almost straight away after we get is it Greed to start with?
Greed's the first one, which is a fucking boggin kill.
Just the body, the liquids, the sickness, when Mills goes under the sink, and it's the puke that's under the sink, and all whatever else is in there, shit and puke, and so he like sniffs it, he's like fucking hell.
And I noticed they really lay on the jump scare later with Sloth at this point, because they keep talking about, or I think Somerset keeps saying like, have you checked that he's dead? And they're like, you don't need to check he's dead. And it's not just like they do it once, they do it like a couple of times.
The whole walk into the building, they're like, but why wouldn't we check?
And then they're like, look at it. When you see him, you'll understand. And I was like, it's so well done. They're just laying that groundwork that you see all of these people and you're like, yeah, they're fucked, obviously. So that jump scare finally gets you.
It looks absolutely disgusting. I think I read actually about the guy who's the obviously quite large man,
the rotund gentleman.
I think he's also got some prosthetics on to make him look even like wider in some ways. But he had so much liquid on him from where he's lying that he literally got stuck to the floor. Like he was lying there for so long that his body and the liquids that they'd put over him made him stick. So they had to literally manage to like break him off of the floor because of how much it was on there. So just imagine
that's bogging. For
an actor, that is such a disgusting kind of situation to be in, kind of thing. So and it's. That scene, there's the aesthetic of these scenes, the way that they're set, the fact that this one is almost this dark and grungy apartment. It makes you feel kind of ill. The look of it, like the mess, the look, the way it looks. Even though they say it's been, what is it, 42 hours or so? They say something like that, like the amount of time that it's been passed since they think it was, and that's why they're almost certain, like, he's definitely dead, guys. It's been like this long.
It's been this long,
you know. But you know, you look in the apartment and it doesn't, you know, it's not like 42 hours worth of like mold and disgustingness in that apartment. It's like that's like years of like
it's
hoarding,
just grit,
you know,
and grot, you know.
And it's that grimy visual style that I think, you know, that's obviously become quite iconic with like David Fincher, because he has quite a, you know, a dark kind of mise-en-scène kind of style within his shooting and stuff. But the way his films look, like most of his films, you know, not all of them, Alien 3, but most of them, you know, his Disowned one, but most of them have this really like beautiful yet dark kind of style to them.
I'm just reading about the 220 kilogram, 480 pounds actor Bob Mack made his film debut as Gluttony, who was described as a very heavy guy face down in spaghetti. Gene Borken was cast to play the greed victim because the filmmakers... I say greed, but it's gluttony, to be specific.
Yes,
because the filmmakers wanted somebody who represented Robert Shapiro. He did not realise his character would be dead and refused a request to perform nude. So imagine just being like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Oh, you just got to be naked and dead in a chair. You know, it's a pretty interesting debut to make.
It is, yeah.
Gary Oldman turned down a unspecified role. Don't know what yeah.
That's got to be.
It would have been
Kevin Spacey,
Somerset.
Right? Do you think Somerset?
I think Somerset.
I'm thinking
actually,
Murderer.
Maybe.
I'm thinking 90s.
90s.
Gary Oldman's not big. Yeah,
he's not that
big.
Yeah, he's not,
you know,
not quite long in the tooth yet.
Through. You could see him as Kevin Spacey's character. Gary Oldman could have done that role. You know,
he could have done good.
You know,
he could have done good. So I just really went off track.
To be fair, when we get to the point when of society when we start basically remaking films, just removing inappropriate people from films, there's probably a chance would they replace Gary Oldman with Kevin Spacey?
Yeah, they're just AI.
AI him out of the film and replace him with. That's probably what's coming our way one day. We're going to start getting the real. No, we can't possibly have that diddler on screen.
Yeah, get rid of the diddlers. Yeah, I think it's such a good kind of like opening gambit for the kills, I think, and it's that the way in which they describe it, and then they go to the morgue and they're talking about like he died by like a ruptured stomach, and it took 4 orderlies to get him on the table, and it just builds this like horrid picture.
It's the world they make, like it really does, like set it makes basically the idea of being like a cop in like New York. Is it New York? Yeah.
No, it's unspecified city.
Unspecified city. Yeah, it feels like a Chicago or you know, like a Chicago or something like that, or a Boston or something like that kind of that we're used to like kind of hearing. So and it definitely feels like New York City, to be honest, to me, like that. But yeah, it's that like world that it builds that basically like this is a horrid world, but it's the outset that we have obviously from Somerset. Like he's basically leaving the job because he is like
a week left.
Yeah, he's done, and that's purely because he just can't take it. I mean, from his perspective, it's telling us because basically it's so like, you know, it's so broken out there. There's nothing we can do to kind of save it, and I can't take any more of this like this darkness that is in this world, which kind of comes like to an contrast towards the end of the film of like his options and his choices towards the end of the film, kind of interesting like that, which I think maybe come back to later when we're at the end. So we're just this film always feels like it's just leading me to the end. So
it does, doesn't it?
It feels like this because everything is like the little like it's like chess pieces perfectly laid out. It's all building. Ending, you know what I mean? It's all been laid out so well that you are just waiting for. And I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people may be remembering 7-1 as being more horrific than it actually is. You know that is it a horror? Is it a thriller? Like when that argument comes about whenever we talk about it, and we're basically like they're two of the same.
Yeah, they're two of the same.
You know what I mean? But like this is one of those that when people come out like everyone says it's really horror, but then be like it's more of like a thriller. And some people like think it's more action packed than it is when it's really not that action packed. Apart from like one major chase scene and a bit with a helicopter at the end, it's not.
People see helicopters swap And they're like, oh, this is an action film.
I mean, there's no Vin Diesel driving up going family.
no, they're not yet. I agree. It's trying not to just go, let's just strip straight to the ending, because that's the thing that you kind of naturally want to gravitate and talk to, and they lay those blocks towards the ending so well. But after, I mean, we might as well kind of rattle through the
through the old
through the sins.
The sins that we've got. So we've had gluttony,
and then you get greed, which is the we were saying greed for the first one.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's gluttony.
It's
first.
gluttony.
I always mix the greed and the gluttony because you think gluttony and greed. It sounds the same, doesn't it? But it's the gluttony is the food based. Greed is more money based.
Yeah, you glutton.
Yeah,
it's quite a good insult, and it's this lawyer who's kind of been, and this one felt very sore to me, who's had to like remove a pound of flesh, and has he cut off like his side or something?
Yeah, like the pound of flesh from like it's like
love
handles, isn't it?
But then, I mean, like, would he die?
No, I thought he had more than an injury though. I thought there was more to it because it's normally because they normally gets a choice, like you do this,
you
like,
live or
remove
die.
your thing, like you do that, you.
No, I think
later
most
on,
of them
like
just
make
kills.
a call, like you've got because I thought the model. Later
well, the model gets the choice.
She has the choice between the two things. I thought they all had some kind of choice.
They don't all have the choice.
I thought,
some of them don't. Some of them don't really die, and it's an interesting thing of like who actually like is the Brad Pitt, he's wrath, but he's not. He doesn't die, His thing is just the fall of a good man.
Because the one with the sloth one, obviously where they're still alive.
Yeah,
that always reminds me of Hannibal. What's
Mason
his name?
Verger.
Mason Verger.
Yes.
Yeah, it always reminds me of like the idea of that kind of like sort of like you've been terribly like disfigured, but I've not actually killed you. Like I've destroyed you to make you think about it, but I've not actually killed you, kind of thing.
I mean, it's not like it's. I think some of the logic there is maybe that's the point. Maybe it is a bit more of a discussion.
It's more like this is where I'm more thin because I'm blanking on the vagueness of some of, because I do feel like although they talk through it, some of them are more in depth talked about by the officers. You hear them discuss it more than other ones, kind of thing. Some of them are kind of referenced, but the idea of what completely went down in that scene is not really obviously left completely, because they don't completely seem to know what has happened in every single one.
No, they just kind of have this disdain for the lawyer, because obviously he is supposed to be kind of like a Robert Shapiro, kind of like high profile Wall Street money man, and everybody else in this city's fucking struggling to get by, and he's like in this penthouse.
I'm taking all this money, bitch.
Yeah, I'm taking it. So it's that I think it's the kind of thing where it's a tricky one to think about. I just get because of I just saw the poster, and the poster just always takes me back, because it's weird that although I probably saw parts of it, or I saw it, but I couldn't remember this film completely. But I remember having the VHS of this film like in a little box in my house for ages. Like I'd look at it all the time and see used to be like Silence of the Lambs, Seven, Alien. Yeah. Like, I used to have the VHS copies of it. I just always remember loving it because it's got the 7 sins going down: the gluttony, the greed, the sloth, envy, wrath, pride, and lust. All of them on the board. And I just remember being like, that's like, just thinking that the poster itself was such a cool poster that I was like, I don't know how it took me so long, because I feel like I didn't watch it properly for a long time after that. I didn't watch it when I was younger. I don't think I watched it until I was maybe early teens, maybe 12, 13 when I watched it. Yeah, I think it's interesting, like those memories that these kind of things always bring back for me. These 90s, because it's, I guess 90s was our childhood, the memory, so it's all those kind of parts. So the pound of flesh, and then because I always felt like it felt quite like some of them felt quite quick was the only thing. This is why my mind always goes with some of them, because
you've got obviously the greed, but then it doesn't feel like it takes very long for them to react and then end up with another one with sloth.
Well, it's supposed to be one day.
Yeah, of
almost.
each one.
It's all very, thought out. But then even that is a bit of an interesting one, because later on, when they kind of ambush John Doe, he's like, I have to go through the schedule quicker, or I have to move it forward. Had to move things forward, and if he's doing one a day, kind of makes. Or I don't know if he is doing one a day, maybe.
I can't remember, because I know it gets
that's just how they find it.
I just remember specifically noticing Sunday, and I think it was Sunday before we properly get the John Doe kind of as if he hasn't come back round to the following of the week kind of thing, as it goes through each of the day, because it's so Monday is gluttony, so I think it gets to Sunday, and then that's the day. So he's had to do he's had to do more than one on the Sunday, hasn't he?
Yeah.
As we find out later. So he does have to move that schedule along. But it's always interesting, that kind of connection that he's gone with the week, basically. One of each day of a week kind of thing. It's a good way to make it keep moving forward as well. They don't really have enough time to get a handle on one death before another one comes.
Does he do one on Sunday? Because Sunday's the day of rest. Sure he should be taking that off.
It's not so much. I never really got it overly that it was mega religious in that way, though. I know it's the 7 deadly sins, but he doesn't talk completely like it's like he's doing it for God or anything like that.
Kind of does,
Yeah, he's got to make his decision and stuff like that. But I thought the Sunday. But I swear, he gets to Sunday.
Maybe he does.
And he's that's when he's caught, unless he is caught Monday, in which case he made it back to 7 days. So
yeah, I can't remember. I do love. I mean, we might as well
rambling around that point.
Yeah, we will. We'll just ramble later. We might as well do Sloth, because Sloth is great. I love the way that they're talking to the lawyer's wife, and they're like, "Does anything about this, does anything about this scene kind of stand out to you?" Because he drew some glasses on her or something like that, and then they get they get the UV light and they see "Help me" written on the wall, and then they manage to track the fingerprints down to this paedophile drug dealer. And
this is the apartment with the air fresheners all over the ceilings and stuff. And it's such an iconic shot.
It's so good.
Looking at them.
And you get John C. McGinley,
because they've been hiding it all the way. He's been a man and how that's the thing though. We're talking as if it all happens in a day, but some of these are not just happening they've been revealed on a day, but they haven't been. Because he's been there for a while, hasn't he? Yeah,
but it's a year to the day. That they let him find them, because he's taken a picture of him every day as he deteriorates. I don't know why. I mean. This is odd, but obviously, so the guy who is Sloth, he was represented by the lawyer. I think they say that he got him off his pedo charges, diddling charges, and stuff like that. But I don't know why he specifically chose this guy. I think wife's, because everything else kind of fits up, but I don't know why Sloth becomes this guy. Because you have Lust, which is obviously potentially the prostitute. I believe that's what it is. I saw an interesting thing online. Counterpoint to that. I was trying to get the definition in my head there. So it's just that sloth is laziness and apathy. Yeah.
So a person not wanting to work because of their lack of motivation. I just wonder if that links more into the fact that because he's a drug dealer, isn't he?
Yeah.
So the kind of idea that yes, he does he sells drugs and stuff like that, but it's almost that kind of. No interest in the lives of other kind of.
Maybe he does something that
he's
apathetic towards.
He basically does something that he doesn't have to contribute anything to any society. He just gets to do that, but although there you go. I'm sure there are many drug dealers listening right now going, "That is a full-time job."
He has a full-time job. I have a rewards program.
You don't know how long it takes to get all those crackheads.
Yeah, I care for my customers.
Their long list.
Their long list of customers. But yeah, I don't know. I feel it's a bit of an odd one there. But maybe that's it. Maybe apathetic to people's problems, apathetic to people's plights that draw them into using drugs, and he's just profiting off of it. But the whole scene is great. We get John C. McGinley and the rest of the SWAT boys kind of going into it, and all of the police are so like horrid to each other as well. You know, there's no like, how you doing, mate? How you getting on? Like they shout, they're like shouting at each other all the time, like just like constantly at each other's throats. And then you get the great scene where they kind of go into the flat, and obviously they're doing like a SWAT team kind of like scour through the building, and you start to see the air fresheners, and there's hundreds of them, and you're thinking like, the fuck is going on here? This is too easy, you know. It starts to feel a bit saw trap-ish, which I guess is probably, you know, a good indication of where they got some of this stuff from. And then you finally see him lying in the bed under the sheets, and I forgot about I knew about the jump scare, that always kind of stayed in my head.
Yeah.
But I forgot about the photographs, and that bit is just fucking bogging.
Yeah.
The idea of like every day he's like drugging him up and then just taking pictures of him, letting him kind of like atrophy on this bed, and it's just fucking rotten.
Yeah. It's I was going to say it, I mean I just love the whole setup of the scene. Like, I love the whole look of the scene, because quite a lot of the scene prior to that had been somewhat dark and gloomy, and this one seems oddly bright. Like,
strangely, once they get into the room.
Once you get, like, when you see, again, those, like, air freshener across the room, the different, like, colours, which is probably some of the most colour you get in the whole film.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that, and then obviously, because it's like, although it's like a disgusting, at the same time, you've also got somewhat kind of like a white, kind of like quite a white aesthetic to like the room. So like even the shit, as if he's been like not only doing that to him, you've got the disgustingness of him being in it, but almost as if like the sheets have been changed.
Yeah, he's like maintaining.
He's been like maintaining it, probably because I guess he's probably going to die from infection, and he doesn't want him to die from infection. So he's like he is keeping him clean. So there's the image of Kevin Spacey giving the drug dealer, giving a little sponge bath to Staley to keep that.
And then,
but not enough to stop that flesh from decomposing just a little bit.
Oh, he's covered in bed sores and everything. It's fucking gross. And then this is so well done, because they're like, well, obviously this guy's fucking dead. You know, go and check him, or like go and do something. And John C. McGinley gets too close, and he kind of like wheezes up, and every time it kind of, I know it's coming. It doesn't get me now, but it makes me think like, that's fucking rotten, you know?
Yeah, I was just looking at it because I wrote a line that Morgan Freeman, because we were talking about the sloth and what it meant.
Yeah, so the sloth.
I was just trying to, because they have that line. Morgan Freeman's Somerset says that when they talk about it, because it says forced contrition. So forced, that's what he uses to describe when they're like, what? Because there is this slight conversation of why is this guy, you know, he must be white, like, and he says it's forced contrition, and obviously contrition. I was like, what the hell is contrition? I was like, I knew what that is, but I knew what like the force. I was just like, contrition is not a word that I. So I was like, contrition is a feeling of sorrow for wrongdoing. So like, but that's why it's forced.
Yeah.
So basically, the sorrow for wrongdoing. So he becomes that kind of the apathy, because he's someone who doesn't care about what he's doing to others.
Yeah.
So the apathy is the fact that he doesn't care about what he does to children. He doesn't care about giving people.
Okay.
The apathy is that. So, and the forced contrition obviously is what has kind of been done to him for that, because he didn't actually get a sentence. He's been forced to live out that sentence through the within the religious sin kind of aspect of it. He's been forced to show sorrow for his wrongdoing in the worst possible way.
Fair enough.
It was just a line that, like, I remember ringing in my head, going like, "What?" It was more that I was like, "What?" I don't actually know what that word means. So I learned a new word yesterday when I rewatched it. Yeah. We kind of just speared through the sin. So the next sin to come along, there is obviously this dramatic balance.
Yeah, they have dinner together.
They have that nice. Yeah, we get to know Gwyneth Paltrow's character.
They have dinner.
She's very like warm compared to like
everybody else.
But it is also, to be fair, the dinner scene is the first time when you get, she's almost invited Somerset over because she wants Mills to get along with him, because Mills is obviously just going home and constantly complaining about it, so she wants to try and get on good side, and she's very quickly like, we know very little about Somerset. We know he's very like to himself, and we don't know. And then she comes in as this kind of more bright kind of, quite intelligent, quite like, and easily seems to just Somerset seems to like her straight away because again, although Mills, we know must be clever in his own way, he does not come across quite as like a kind of intelligent in the kind of book smart way that Somerset is. Which somewhat seems to annoy Mills at times, but he's almost not that kind of, that's not his approach. But I think we also get another layer to that because she kind of is that kind of, I think that kind of intelligent. So I think it's almost like we're getting his little inferiority complex with Mills coming out that actually I'm not all, and I'm with her, she's sometimes like that as well. I can't be that guy. He's more of the act now, worry about it later, opposite of Somerset, who is very much, we're going to work all of this out before we just jump to conclusions.
But there's a line where they talk about how emotional, Mills is, and he says like, "Man, I feed off my emotions," and it's that thing of it's that explosiveness inside of him.
Yeah,
and I think what else that Somerset kind of likes about Tracy is that she doesn't like the city either, and she was dragged there, and she isn't. Mills wanted to go there to try and prove himself, almost to show how tough he is, whereas Tracy kind of looks around and understands that like, actually it's a shithole, I don't really want to be here, I don't suit it, and I think it's that same wavelength.
It definitely does, and it definitely doesn't suit like her at all in terms of like her personality is far too kind of open and like small towny for this kind of like thing, and I think that's why they seem to get on the same wavelength very quickly. It's also probably a reason why Mills will be even more depressed later when he realizes he dragged her there. But I think it gives us a little bit more idea into Somerset as a character who we don't really know much about. We get a bit more on Mills because we get some scenes with him and Tracy before that, don't we? So we get a couple that we get to know his kind of home life a little bit more, that he's kind of got more. So we get a slight other side to him. So it's interesting to have that. But what's also great about this scene is it's the first scene when they actually seem to come together on something, when they both get that inkling of an idea that pops up, when they start talking after the dinner and they actually start discussing it. I think it feels like the first scene when you actually see them somewhat working together properly, finding something that's like actually, and then you get into that kind of idea of the whole, we've just come off of God knows how many hour shift. We've come for a nice meal, and now we're going back to work. We're straight back into it.
Back into it.
But it's a great scene, followed up by what is our next sin that we're the sin of coughing.
The sin of coughing. Yeah, I think the next kind of important plot point is when we actually start to see that. Actually, maybe Somerset isn't quite as squeaky clean as he lets on to be. When he goes into they're in the pizza parlour, and
when he meets Tracy? Do you mean?
No. I think this is before. But it's when he pays the FBI guy to get a list of all the all what people are checking out, and then they go to John Doe's apartment. I'm sure that that's before, or maybe actually no. I think it is. We do find out that Tracy's pregnant before. I'm pretty sure that. Sorry,
but that's just what I like. In my mind, it feels like it takes more of a leap because it actually happens quite. That's the only odd thing. Like we do get some other like parts, some investigation scenes. We even get a scene of him going in. Isn't that where we get a scene of him like going into the library and he's got the guys like, you want classical?
There is that.
We get those moments. Quite nice little scenes again that feel like they're more building up Somerset's character in a lot of ways. But actually, the scene between that's why I was just as I was reminding myself we were in the summer, reminding that actually the scene with the supper isn't that long followed by the Tracy telling him, which seems kind of odd when you think about, but it feels oddly quick that you've just like met this guy and he's throwing away to like telling everything to him. The fact that she wants it's probably because he's the only person that can understand Mills, I guess, in the same way she will understand or she's the only person she's met in the city because she doesn't really know anyone. Who's actually going to also understand the situation she's in and what a shithole that they're in, kind of thing.
And it is mental because when you think actually the film was supposed to take place over 7 days, It's like, oh, we have dinner, and then like a day or two later, you're like meeting in secret, like, yeah, I'm pregnant. Oh yeah, don't tell your husband.
This is also, for her, is one of her last proper scenes in the film.
Yeah,
so you now go a prolonged period, but the only ever scenes you really see her in is like Mills waking up in the night and that she's in bed kind of thing. So we know to give you somewhat of an idea of what happened kind of thing, that kind of thing. But that's the only scene when you get those. The scene that you were talking about with the going into the actual apartment. So that's because it's by Friday now, and they're starting to get closer and closer, obviously.
This scene felt to me when they when they go up to, they find where John Doe's place is, and they're waiting outside for him, and then he comes up looking like Dick Tracy, and he starts shooting at them. This scene felt to me very They Live, the fight scene in They Live, where it just goes on. Yeah, I think this scene goes on for like 6 or 7 minutes. This chase that
going through the chasing through the bit, like out to the thing. It does go on for quite a while. Like they're getting down the stairs, and the Dick Tracy part. Just the way he's dressed, we can't possibly reveal. So I must go around in a hat and a trench coat.
Yeah, and I'm sure he has a wig on as well.
Well, he's trying to hide who he is, I guess. Yeah. But it's very like, I guess it's the idea that he is completely like ahead of them, like almost as if he knows that they're going to appear, kind of thing. So he's been completely ready for this for a long time.
Well, I think they catch you by surprise.
Well, that's what that's the hard thing, because by the end it makes it seem as if everything was very much like.
It makes it feel like it, but I think they caught him.
It's the fact that he was already in a coat and a thing and hiding his appearance that makes you think that
but it's always raining.
He was somewhat ready for it, at least.
It's always raining in that fucking unspecified city. It's just constantly raining. So a coat and a hat is just a good idea. And a gun.
And a wig.
And a wig. Well,
it's kind of a something that can kind of make sure you really can't see their face at all. That black shadowing.
The black shadowy face.
I always go out with my black coat cloak over my face.
Yeah, that is true. And the shooter. You always got to have one of them on you. But yeah, I feel like it's a good chase scene.
Yeah.
But for me it did become very They Live, where I was like how long is this going to go on for?
It's going to keep going.
It's got to keep going. Like they're running through. They're running down the stairs, and obviously it's the idea that Mills is so persistent that he doesn't keep up with Somerset, and he kind of puts himself recklessly out there. Yeah. But he's running down the stairs, and then like he runs through like some people's apartments, and then he like runs through somebody else's apartment, and then you get to a window, and it's like, okay, he jumps through that window, and then they're on a roof, and there's some guy who just shouts, "Shut the fuck up!" And I was thinking, like, okay. And then they go into, like, another apartment block. Yeah. And then they go
through like, a window.
Through another window.
Down some light fire. Then
there's something before the fire escape. And then they're on the streets. And then they go over the cars. And then they go into, a back alley. And then you get the scene where, like, he's on the, he's hiding on the truck.
Yeah.
And he bonks him on the head. And then he's like, puts the gun to his head. And it's great, but it is also like what? Like that went on so long that to me it got to a point where that Benny Hill music over,
it's almost, I think it's that like, I feel like that is the one thing that, like, obviously thinking of the slight editing that maybe could have taken place.
Maybe could have trimmed it a little bit.
But it's also one of those, I guess, where you're thinking this has been a very kind of talky movie, very kind of, not like major, like, events have happened, definitely, but not like a big action, so it's kind of like we're finally giving you this big action scene. Like
maybe that's why it feels so out of place for me.
Yeah, because it definitely doesn't. I agree that I don't think it needs to go on that long, but it, not that, it gives it to it. It's good for Mill's character.
Yeah,
but it would have worked just as effectively maybe a minute or two less.
Yeah, if they'd have cut like a minute or two off of it, maybe. It would have been a bit better.
Talking of a cut, so Brad Pitt actually, the reason he has the cast in the film is because he actually injured himself.
Oh shit! Okay.
So he while he was running and filming that chase scene, he cut his arm for him, or did something to the tendons in his arm on a car windshield, and he caught it as he went through and cut and basically all the tendons in his arm and stuff like that. So they were like, we're gonna have to do like several shots. How are we gonna like go around this now? Because now you're gonna be that. So they just decided to incorporate it into the movie. So they just decided to add, so David Fincher just went up and finished off his arm. He's like, we can only do this if it's actually broken. We just snap it.
Just snap his arm.
That's how committed we are to this film.
Just have Kevin Spacey hammer him with an iron bar.
But he was able to finish that scene, and obviously, therefore, they incorporated that into the later shots. Although, to be fair, the shots they had to go back from early in the film, they had to do from... So if you watch in certain scenes of the film, there's angles where you never see Brad Pitt from the front, or you only ever see the head or above the neck or around the thing, because certain scenes they had to refilm. But they were like, how are we going to do this with your arm in a cast? Kind of thing, we can't do that. So
I was wondering that.
So it does have some certain ones. So again, if you haven't watched it, look out for the scenes where it looks like they're oddly distorting, like Somerset's there, but Mills is like stood to one side, like his back is turned. He's got like he's turning his head, like putting his head over.
He's like an owl.
He's doing the little, what is it? The little putting his finger in his mouth. Like, what did I do?
Yeah, little cheeky wiggling his ass, and you're like, this film's become very strange.
You're all envious of this, bitch.
Or they've just had to recast him after that with Don Knotts.
For like midway through the film, it just changes.
It's Don Knotts for like 15 minutes, and then it's back to Brad Pitt when it's healed.
You love the idea that like you could film a film, they could make a film, and then they're like, for some films earlier in the film and later in the film, they were like, like either the actor's hurt or the actor died or something like that, and you're like, we're just going to have to fill it in with something. Just put an actor in there. And it's like every couple of scenes, it's like, why the fuck is Don Knotts in there?
Why's Don Knotts here? It's always Don Knotts.
Don't open the box. What's in the box?
What's in the box? Oh, I love Don Knotts.
Don Knotts. There you go. A weird American reference there for some people.
Well, we had a weird,
we had a Don Knotts face.
We had the Don Knotts face.
Who doesn't have a Don Knotts face when they're teenagers?
Yeah. When they get into the apartment, they start to see that he's a fucking, he's a nutter, this John Doe. Yeah. They've got he's got books based on 7 Deadly Sins, the one that they, he checked out, but then he's got all these fucking mental diaries. And I was thinking, like, I seem to remember him having some kind of like brain cancer or something, which made him kind of go a bit off and start killing people. But I don't actually think that's the case. I think I was probably like watching this and then just putting Saw into my head again, with John Kramer.
Yeah.
Because I seem to remember that when they go into his apartment, them finding like, oh man, he's got like a brain tumor, which is like what's making him do all of this. But I think he's just cooked. He's just God.
I was going to say he's just. I mean, it somewhat gives you the idea that he believes he achieved nothing, and this is his idea to achieve something.
It's
kind of thing, to be remembered.
But it's his
to have this like messiah kind of complex, I guess.
It's almost like how he responds to the city and all the shit and the violence that's going on there. It's like his. They all deal with it in different ways. Like, Mills almost wants to try and fix it. Mills doesn't want to give up on it and thinks that people are kind of worth saving, and that's why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
Somerset is like, you can't do it. It's just rotten. It's just gone. So I'm just going to remove myself from it, which is kind of has its own kind of like apathy to it. And then John Doe is just kind of like, I'm going to punish these people for their sins, Yeah. It's interesting.
The way they all play that role within
it. One thing that I hate in this scene, and it's when, when you see like the trophies he's taken. So you have like the spaghetti cans, you have like, I think it's part of the scales for greed. You have for sloth, you have his hand, and then for the prostitute, which has got to be lust, you just have a picture of her. But then they get like they see a receipt for like Big Owl's custom levers, and you're like, what the fuck is that going to be? And that whole I think that's the worst. The way in which they just build it, where they don't show you it until it's kind of too late.
Yeah. What's going to be? What is it going to be?
What's in the box?
Yeah. So those. I was just thinking about the whole, because you've got the whole film kind of John Doe, and I guess the interesting part is, and obviously we're not to his reveal yet, but
No.
But the interesting part is this film that you've got this kind of thing of like who the actor is going to be, kind of thing, because it's not played out there. It's not obvious, you know. It's not really a character we really meet. He's not on the poster. He's not in the opening credits, which is unusual for an actor who's a well-known. So they purposely remove. It's like the old like watching the American cop shows or detective shows or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, or like Murder, She Wrote or whatever. It's like whenever people say like the worst thing about it is like you'll always watch one and it'll be like, and guest starring this week is like, I don't know, Tom Selleck or something like that. It's like, he's the killer. Why is he in one random episode of the show?
Tom Selleck's not be the killer.
He's not doing it, you know. The only reason they want to do it is because they get to be the murderer or the thing. Like, no one knows, you know, if it's that actor this week. So it's just like, it's like watching those shows and you're just like, if you just look at the start credits like that. So it's like if this end at the beginning and then
Kevin Spacey.
And Kevin Spacey. It's like, well, I haven't seen Kevin Spacey in this film yet, so... He's the killer, right?
Yeah, he's the killer.
He's the killer.
I love the idea because that opening credit scene is so good. It's so creepy. And it's got a bit of like a Nine Inch Nails remix over it. And Howard Shore did the soundtrack for the film.
Yeah.
Who obviously went on to do Lord of the Rings amongst a bunch of other stuff. But I love the idea of it just being like going through the credits and having that really like moody, like mysterious, creepy thing, and then it just comes up saying Don Nuts. you're like, what the fuck? What's he doing in this film? Just randomly, just as a little aside.
I love the soundtrack of this film. You know, like you said, that opening or even the ending. The way it almost sounds like the scratching of a vinyl.
Yeah,
it's got that odd like. Which is weird because it's a really good beat and bass to the song, but then you've also got that scratching, which should be really uncomfortable to listen to. But it's kind of like, and that's the thing. Like it's literally so perfect with this film. The fact that the music, the dawning, like the huge orchestral bits that come in at points that kind of dawn on you when it's really time. You know, is about. I mean, the bit with the build up, the music and the build up at the end of this film, as we're getting towards that scene, is incredible. But the opening, the closing, just it gives you a sense of unease the whole time. You know, because I'm just remembering that correct. Because literally it goes straight to the credits like at the end, and then you get John Doe, Kevin Spacey. It's the first time his name is met, like separated from all the rest of the actors' credits, is just. John Doe, Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey was kept away from other actors.
Yeah,
that happens now.
That just happens just for other reasons,
for different reasons.
Yeah, and then you get the phone.
It's all right. Yeah,
you get the phone call.
Yeah,
where he basically says, "Oh, I've got to move my schedule up," and I admire you. He keeps saying to Mills, and then they record the voice, and then we get him very quickly. So
Lust and Pride
come
step by step, don't they?
Yeah, they go to the leather shop work, and you don't see what he's been working on or what he's made, and you're like, what the fuck? And then,
I love the guy in the leather shop. Who, like, I just love the way he's just so like, oh, this. He's like, they're like, but you made this for him. And it's like, you should see the shit that I've made.
Yeah, you see the shit.
Have you seen what shop you've just walked into?
Yeah, it's so.
And it's like literally right over there is a chair with a dildo attached to it.
It's so good, isn't it? Yeah.
Like literally, there's leathers all around you. You know what I mean? Would you like something for your wife?
Yeah,
I do a headless edition.
But yeah, and then they just go and just fucking hell, it's so rotten. This is one that I remember seeing her after. I remember seeing like
thinking you can see her without the nose.
Thinking you could no. This is the
lust. Or do you mean
lust.
Oh, well, I thought she was the one on the bed, or am I? Oh no, this is. Oh yeah, yes. I'm mixing them around in my head.
Yes,
sorry.
This is.
I'm mixing Pride with.
This is in like the CD sex club.
Yeah, I'm mixing Pride in with Lust there. Yeah.
I seem to remember like you seeing her, and I just remember that. But the reveal of the fucking custom-made bladed strap-on is fucking rotten.
Horrific,
it still made me cringe.
It's
the
violence of that, like again, you think you can see it, but in your head, like again, it paints that is what the when they can describe something that makes it. And then not only that, obviously when they get into into the station, and you've got the guy who was forced by gunpoint to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
When in my head I'm kind of thinking, why don't you just turn around and stab him
Why
with your dick?
don't you start hugging him? Yeah.
We caught John Doe. He's dead. He was dick to death.
He was dick to death. What? John Doe's been dick to death.
It's just in my head, the idea of the way I picture it is just like someone's got the gun to the back of your head, but you're stood there like in that position with a knife, dildo, or with a knife on the end, and you're just thinking, if I could just quickly turn around, I could just get right in
I
there.
could start having a pop at him, and just start cracking off.
I mean, not to talk of the man's appendages, but maybe there just wasn't enough girth there to do the job.
Maybe he didn't have the motion done,
The knife did most of the job for her.
Yeah. It's so rotten. And it's interesting because I saw online that people were saying like, well, the prostitute isn't the sin here. The prostitute isn't the sinner. They were like, because one of the arguments would be that like a prostitution generally is done out of necessity. Like people needing money for drugs, or people being like human trafficked or something like that. It's not often like nymphomaniacs who are just like, I tell you what, I love shagging anyway. Why don't I start getting paid for it? And people are arguing that it's the man who's the sinner because he went and he paid for it. He was lustful, but then you see her picture strictly in the box.
That's why I don't know if it's meant. That's why some of them almost feel like, because you can't completely like, it's almost the act and the person, the one who died, but. In some of those, kind of like the sloth one, where it's not quite as if it almost has to be what was done to him alongside him himself. Yeah. Like with this one, it feels like the lust is the whole situation more than just her, because I mean, lust is she's not lusting for a knife dick. You know what I mean?
Lust for a knife
what I mean? But he was lusting for
he was lusting for love.
He feels more lustful than she would ever be. Lustful in that, like the idea that a prostitute is lustful for another penis at the end of the day. Yeah, just doesn't seem to quite compute in your head. You know what I mean? No. So it definitely feels more that he makes more sense to be the one. Like the trauma that you see that he's gone through.
I'd be wrong.
It's the same way that Sloth isn't technically dead. You know what I mean? Like, at the time,
he's cooked, but he ain't dead.
He's cooked, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost the situation they put them through. But also, it almost feels a bit like that makes you think more about John Doe as a person. Yeah. And the fact that he probably, whatever his fucked up childhood, his whatever weird kind of towards women or whatever it is, but in this weird kind of, that he's almost targeting it towards the one that he thinks is disgusting, but he's bringing it through the one who performs it, kind of. Yeah. It's that one. It's an interesting one. Yeah, to be fair, my mind blended the two because of the woman part of it. I was thinking more of because the next one is more specifically like you're specifically looking at a female in bed kind of thing with pride. After you've had the kind of the interviews in the station, which are in their own way kind of oddly haunting. I think the guy crying, like literally like weeping at the thing. The performances are fantastic. You would
be fucked.
Yeah, your main.
I don't think you'd be coming back.
That's what I mean. I mean, the stuff that happens to most people, anyone involved in these situations, you're just like, your minds are fucked at this.
You're gone.
He truly destroys people. Like what he does
you're gone.
to them. Whereas hers is a little bit more like as we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, but the way that she's been but she's facially disfigured because she had the choice between calling
an ambulance and living, or popping some pills and
killing herself.
Yeah,
which it's an interesting. You've got that scenario kind of thing that we've got that kind of again like very what we got with Ensor, where you have to make a choice between something at times, make a choice between a body part or your life or things like that.
Yeah, learn a lesson.
Kind of comes from there to learn a lesson, where she's learning that lesson about pride, as in, do you pride your beauty over your, so
you've got to live your life disfigured.
So she chooses not to kill herself, but she's disfigured for it, but she's dead anyway. So
I think she kills herself.
Oh, she commits. She commits suicide. Yeah. Oh yes. But I think after she did.
She's been.
Oh, I thought the idea that she disfigured and then she couldn't live with it and takes the pills.
No, he disfigures her. and then gives her the choice.
Yeah.
And is like, because he glues them to her hands, and he's like, you can call,
okay.
or you can kill.
I took it the other way, as in like you can either ring and you can either take the pills, or you can ring for help, but almost as if you're going to be disfigured if you go for help, but not.
Oh no!
You see what I mean? Not take the pills and then not that you disfigured her first. I thought it was more of a. You can take the pills or do that, but if you call them, I'm going to, you'll be disfigured. I took it the other way around.
He does it first, and then gives her the choice. But
my way was fairer.
I mean, it does almost come in with the, it is the first time I think any of them are actually given a choice.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine him being, him saying to Gluttony, like, all right, you have a choice of just eating spaghetti until you burst, or nah, or you just stay here.
That's your
choice. And he's like, oh,
eat spaghetti. Here's all the spaghetti. You chose spaghetti.
Well, I'm eating spaghetti, aren't I? You've already called me a glutton, and now I have to. I just have to prove you right.
Yeah. Not all of them. You're right. Not all of them.
Not all of them do kind of get that choice.
No, they don't all have the same kind of options and choices. So. This is obviously because that was the last one was Saturday. This one is Sunday, and then it follows straight into them coming back from this one, and then you see John Doe getting out of the car. So our first scene where we actually properly see Kevin Spacey is you get the stair scene obviously earlier on, where they work out who it was because they bumped into him on the stairs. Yeah, but you didn't really properly.
You don't get to
see
see it. They
again.
keep him disguised.
Yeah,
I just remember we've come this far into a film called Seven that counts down 7 days, and we haven't made a Craig David joke. I was literally thinking now Craig David steps out of the taxi and is revealed to be the killer.
Took him for a drink.
Yeah.
7 days.
7 days. Not 7, not to be confused with Craig David's 7.
I mean, to be fair, that's pretty much about as topical as saying like that 7 is like the it's like saying the film 7 is the greatest film that you've seen like most recently by being like what film? This is like 20 years old now.
Yeah.
So, and to be fair, Craig David as a topical conversation is also that was like 2001. So it wasn't that long after. It's an outdated reference.
Yeah, but it was there.
It's there.
It's there.
It's there. I never even thought of that. So
it just popped into my head.
And Don does. We got some weird. We got some old ones popping up here. This scene's great. The when he walks in covered in blood. Detective. Don't know whose blood he's covered in, and and then he's talking straight to them, and they go. I mean, Mills is straight for like, get out the goddamn car! I'll fucking kill you! I'm gonna fucking shoot you!
Because you kind of assume that it's Pride's blood.
Yeah.
At least I do every time I watch it. I'm like, that's Pride's blood.
That's the model's blood. He's just come from like doing it.
Yeah.
Which is that's what you would assume it must be, that he's for that. I mean, he's got a ton of blood all over his body, kind of thing. Somewhat actually and some of it looks slightly still wet.
Yeah,
like upon him, as if it's literally just happened.
Yeah,
but we also know that Pride has not happened that long ago because that one's not been left so long, kind of thing.
No, I think they do say it's quite recent.
And they've literally just come back from the station. Like, they literally go into the station as John Doe gets out.
Yeah, it's quite a cool shot.
So it's all quite measured when you get that, like, from the ground shot up of him stepping out his feet and you see him walk in. So you still don't get the full look until he's stood there in front of them and you're like, that's Kevin Spacey.
That's Kevin Spacey. He's the killer. Kevin Spacey's the killer.
That must be him. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, that's kind of the thing of, like, I don't, like, you've got the thing, I guess there could be people like it's just because probably maybe because I never know. I never thought of this ever being one of those like who's doing it. Oh, is it going to end up being someone that they know? Who's the killer?
It doesn't feel like it's.
It doesn't feel like it's ever set up like that though. No. So it doesn't feel like I know we don't show Kevin Spacey throughout the film, but it also feels like that's not really the. My mind weirdly was never consistently on like who is it?
Oh, it's Morgan Freeman.
My mind was more on like why is this happening so much. And I think that's to its detriment. Like that's really like that's good for the film that it's actually we're more worried about the plot than we are about like necessarily who did it, because these films sometimes live and die on like really it was that blow, you know what I mean, it's that it's the things that make certain like slasher films or things like that kind of live or die when they lean into that. You're a bit like, it depends if it works, but when it's someone you're like, oh, what the fuck?
It's the thing that I always struggle with Scream, you know? I always find like you get the reveal and then you're like, okay.
You have to, that's with Scream, especially like the sequels following like the earlier ones, you've always kind of got to be like, okay, like, it's what makes it really fun to watch the first time you watch it.
Yeah.
And also makes you somewhat not like the film the first time you watch it.
Yeah.
With Scream films, I mean. Because in that first one, there's always kind of a moment of, oh, is that it? Like, it was that. And you're like, actually that completely makes sense, and you almost have to go away and accept it, and then you're like, now I can enjoy this film now. It's a weird case I always find that with Scream or any film like that style
where they have the reveal,
where I'm like that, where it's like the reveal, and then there's a part of you that almost, unless it works out exactly in the most interesting way that you could possibly imagine, it's like, oh, actually that was really disappointing. And then you go back to it afterwards, you're like, it wasn't. It was the fact that my brain could not accept that. I mean, I'm not saying always. There have been plenty of Scream situations where, you know, the one that still pisses me off, the one that killed Dewey, is still like, what the fuck? You're the one that killed Dewey. You were like the worst serial killer in Scream 5. You know, that was terrible. And you were the one that got to kill Dewey. Goddamn, David Arquette should be spitting in your face.
He should be turning in.
I mean, that bitch is about to win an Oscar, possibly.
Yeah. But then he has been killed.
I'm sure she's perfectly nice. I'm just saying, within the film, I just do not feel that made any sense.
No.
And now we're on to Scream, so fuck you, Seven. We've changed into with forms.
Let's just do Scream.
Yeah, let's just do Scream. So we've never made it through.
We've never finished.
We've tried to do Scream like twice, and it's never worked.
It's never. They just don't want us to.
We are bad. We've done like some of the sequels and never done the original.
No, they just don't want us to do it.
They don't want us to do it. You're trying to get us down.
They're trying to get us.
That's society, man. We
That's
know
society.
We know what Somerset's talking about.
We know.
The darkness of this world.
It just stops us. Back to 7.
Back to 7. We literally
back to life, back to reality.
Spent the rocky tumble of this episode of having a part when we were a bit like, how do we not make this jump to the ending? And now we've finally got to the ending, and we've started talking about a completely different film. We've finally got to the part we were waiting the whole episode and stumbling in the middle, as I'm sure many people recognise, when we were like, how do we form this properly now? Because we've lost our way because we keep thinking about the ending.
Blinded by the light.
I feel we found our way back, and now we've finally got to the ending, and we're like, this is the end.
This is the end.
We're not going to talk about it. It doesn't.
The end happens.
No one cares about the ending of 7. It's not somewhat kind of what ended up defining this film.
No, of course not. Just go watch it.
It definitely, what I mean.
Just go watch it. Yeah, just watch it, mate. That's our new podcast format. It opens and we go, today we're going to be covering Halloween. Just go watch it. And then we just end the episode.
That's it.
Just go watch it, mate.
We're going for the new formatted style of 10-second
10
episodes.
seconds.
We'll literally turn it on. You could listen to it. And if you haven't got your headphones in, you'll miss it by the time you start.
It's gone.
You're like, what the fuck?
We've emotionally checked out.
We're just done. We're just releasing it purely to see our low amount of people listening, to just see like, there you go. They listened for 10 seconds. That's fine.
Yeah, that counts as a full listen.
That's how we'll get that Spotify money.
That's how we get that Spotify money. But back to
the end. And saying as it was about the, some films are defined by their ending.
Yeah.
Some films are defined by their ending, and the rest of the film, you suddenly realise the ending was fantastic, the rest of the film was shit. Luckily, 7 does not fall into this category.
I think it's...
I mentioned another film that is defined. I don't know if you've ever seen The Usual Suspects.
I have a long, long time ago.
But that was one where I knew what the ending was before, so yes, maybe that somewhat tainted it for me, but I knew what the ending of this one, and it was still a fucking banging film. You know what I mean? But that one, I watched the film, and I was just like, was that it? Like, it feels like the whole film was basically a good twist, that was somewhat the rest of the film was like, it was like, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's loads of films out there where it's like there's this big ass twist that happens, and you're like, and then everyone's like, oh my god, and then a lot of people, and to be fair, like talking of Oscar things, there's several films in the past that have almost won an Oscar because they had a really good twist or they had a really good like style to it, and then afterwards, and for every time you get like what I think like a 7, or to be honest, I'd even say like hugely defined by its twist, but Sixth Sense. I was
wondering how that holds up because I haven't watched it for about 20 years.
I haven't, to be fair, I now haven't watched it in a long time, but the last time I watched it, I remember still thinking, that was a pretty good one. And then obviously M. Night Shyamalan went on to become the king of all twists, not necessarily for
Hoisted
good
by
ones.
his own petard.
Every film had to have a twist to the point where he, to the point where he made The Happening. And his twist was that the plants are trying to kill you. And everyone went, fuck off.
Yeah, well, let's just kill him.
You're done now. He has rebounded in the last few years, luckily for him, but that killed him for a while there.
Yeah, he was cooked.
You say your whole environmental message thing. Well, he each film after The Sixth Sense started to decline in the rate of how the twist could make it work. Like he did, like Signs Unbreakable, and each time it was like these twists are working less and less now.
Yeah.
Until you're literally.
Yeah. No, I think Seven. I think it works so well because the rest of the film is so fantastic, and it is. I wouldn't say it's like
so built to it.
Yeah, it's so built to it. It's not like a crawling film. I mean, it is just over 2 hours, and it does take its time. But a lot of that is a balancing act between, obviously these super creepy, kind of horrendous, shocking kills or deaths or scenes or investigations. Then
balanced out with, well, for me, it's balanced
character
out.
work.
Yeah, the character, the Mills and Somersets, like the way they bounce off each other, kind of makes for an interesting way. And to be honest, and yes, you can put a lot into the ending as well because it is a fantastic ending. But it's how dramatic this ending is. That is what, like, the acting, the performances in this final part of the film is just like, Jesus Christ, I mean, like, you understand what, like I said earlier about Brad Pitt being, being like kind of more well known for being a dramatic actor after this film because he puts everything into this final thing. I mean, there's long running because obviously, so the ending is not the thing. The ending was the most important part, like for the cast and crew, for the director. Like David Fincher obviously did Alien 3 before that, and he was done with Hollywood. He was like, fuck this. Like, we know he disowned it. He didn't want his name on the film, and he pretty much said to his agent, "He's like, no, I'm not doing any more. I'm done. Come here." And the one script that he received, which he wasn't meant because he took his name off of the receiver.
Oh, wow.
He was like, I'm fucking. This isn't. I don't want to do this. And the one script he received was a draft of 7, and it kind of drew him back in. But it wasn't just that. He received an old draft of 7. Yeah, he received the original, like the early original draft before the studio got in and went, nah, not that. We ain't doing that ending. No, we're not doing. Oh, and that's too dark. And that, and we're taking that away. And can we make this a little bit more, a little bit more like general audience will enjoy? And I don't know that there's no thing on this specifically what it was. All I've heard from people that have mentioned it, like what I could read online was basically that they said that the other version of the script was so watered down.
Yeah,
none of that vision was there
of the ideas for the alternative endings, which do just sound a little bit Hollywood and a bit more cheerier than what we ended up getting.
Because it was literally in Brad Pitt's contract. So he came like he kind of got onto this film, and I think he might even be an executive producer. Like he might have signed on to this because he had such a passion for it. But in his contract, it specifically said, "You don't change the ending." And David Fincher said the same thing: "Is that you do not like the I will sign on to do this film. I want to make this film, but the ending we're following the original draft. We're not following that other ending." Which,
well, there was a few.
Imagine just and it is like I'm not saying that if you did this film and the ending was different that you wouldn't still think it was a good film, but it wouldn't be the great film that most people see it as.
Yeah,
the ending makes it iconic. The rest of it would have made it a very interesting and good like cop, thriller, kind of horror thriller, but the ending just tops it.
Oh, the ending really does kind of build it up, and I think there's this. I love when before they go out to the desert, before we jump there, there's this great bit where John Doe looks at Mr. Morgan Freeman's Somerset, and he says, "I know you," and you start thinking. Then you're like, "What the fuck?" You already know that like he's taken a bit taking a couple of like bribes, that kind of thing. And there's this moment where you start to click that, especially towards the end, that effectively Somerset sold out Mills without realising.
Yeah.
You know, and you start to think like, was he the one who like told John Doe that, you know, Tracy was pregnant? Did he tell that? You know, because did he give like her the address? All of this kind of stuff
of where it could have come from.
Yeah, you know, because even at one point he said, John Doe says something like, you know, the men in your precinct, you know, aren't quite as tight-lipped as you think, or, you know, more up for exchanging than you realise. And he's looking at Morgan Freeman in the back of the car when he says it, you know, and it's that thing of like, he's fucked him over somehow. Not realised.
Not realised that he's given even more away, kind of thing as well. And I love that. I love that scene with in the back of the car with him talking to Mills, because straight away you see that he's just. It's like he sees through Mills so
it's just
easily.
goading him.
He knows exactly what he needs to do. He knows he's going to get nothing from Somerset. He can tell who he is. He knows who he is. He's obviously been watching and, you know, working out who these guys are and what they've been doing and stuff like that. Which itself is part of their downfall, the fact that they never thought about themselves being part of it.
No, but then you wouldn't, would you? Because not really.
But I guess it's that, but because they don't realise what it all is until that point, obviously. But it's just more of that thought of, I guess they're like, I don't know if you look across the film, like you were saying about the low connections, who might have, you know, given this away, who might have given that. Like at the same time, if you look across the film, like of how easily they're kind of just like visible, they kind of go to the apartment together, things like that. They're never aware that like if someone was watching one of them, you've led them wherever they want to go. And, you know, and to be fair, at the same time, pretty much in America, I swear they used to have like phone books where you could basically just go, there's that bloke.
Yeah, this is.
I'm gonna find him.
We had the Yellow Pages, didn't we?
We had the Yellow Pages, but our Yellow Pages wasn't listed. Ours was like businesses and stuff.
Some, but like, they were also like
they had some phone book that had.
I feel like there were some people
certain registered ones and stuff. Like I thought it was more businesses and stuff. I don't remember.
There were a lot of businesses in there, but I also feel like other people were in there.
I always thought that was more like an American thing. I always thought it was really weird to have a book filled of. Like, imagine doing that nowadays, just online, being like, here's... Like, not that you can find some of that stuff. If you want to find it, if you want to find us and murderers, maybe you
it
can
is just
find
businesses. But
I always thought it was, but so it's... like, even if it was over here, it's a really weird concept to be like,
it is really
here's your number, your address, and your name.
Yeah.
Just go and find them.
I'm not going to call them.
Oh, you want to find that person? Oh, fantastic. That's it. Okay.
I'll just call this random person.
That's fine. No. Did he just annoy you? You're like, you know, in the car? Did he just like flip? I was about to say flip you off like American. There you go. Did he? Did he finger you?
Did he finger you? So, have you been fingered and want to call them to thank
you? Have you been fingered in the car?
You've been fingered in your car and you forgot to say thank you. Right. I think it was this guy.
You can find it.
You can find it.
That's the right time to do it.
The
wrong time is like, I was able to ring up somewhere and I found out your license plate and found it belongs to you, and now I found your name in the phone book, and now I found your address, and now I'm going to murder you.
I'm going to kill you. Because you fingered me. You fingered me in a car. You fingered me in a car park. And I'm unhappy with my experience, so I'm going to drive to your house. And
this was a time before you could just give them a review online.
Yeah, now you just put a review online.
Yeah, you just review your Uber driver.
Now you just dox them. you know, back then you just went to the doorstep and shot them. In a much more effective way.
Now you just destroy their name and their credibility online.
So you get this bit where, you know, he's saying like, I'll plead insanity. Unless you take me, I'll show you the other kind of like bodies. And then I said that's so weird because I'll show you the two remaining bodies.
Yeah.
But it has to be Mills and it has to be Somerset and it has to be out in this like location. We have to be there by 6 o'clock.
Out in the middle of nowhere.
Out in the middle of nowhere.
And they're all having this conversation and the thing like, fuck no.
Yeah.
Like, no. I mean, the good thing is at least they talk about it. If this had just been said, like, this would be almost a major fact if they didn't do this. Like, this is at least a somewhat intelligent, even if it doesn't go completely. Still feels unintelligent in some ways. But at least they have this conversation where they're with the lawyer in the room, and to start with, even Mills is like, fuck no, we're not playing into his hands.
Yeah.
We've got him, he's done, he's fake. It's the lawyer, the Weasley little bitch. Who's literally like, well, I can probably get him insanity with this, so I can probably get him out on this. And they're just like, what? Like, dude has fucking came in here with blood. You've got it blood from a murder, which is still a little bit like, the dude has blood from it. I know you can say that these are insane, but the idea that someone can still get away with it, you know what I mean? Like, the idea,
be a really good lawyer.
Yeah, he must have been a banging lawyer to get away with all of that stuff, you know. But then we believe he also got the pedo off with the so, you know, he's a pretty good lawyer, drug dealer, pedo, and he got both off all the charges. So,
maybe,
you know, but it's just that, you know, Somerset doesn't figure it in. Although Somerset is oddly more like with Hall. He's not actively being like, no. He's almost he almost keeps looking at Mills as if he's like following on from like. He obviously looks at Arlie Emery, you know,
who is a dog.
Yeah,
he's an absolute dog. You know, he's so good.
And like he's going up, like he's almost going off of the others. He's not actively like that. He's like He has the oddness of like he almost in some ways wants to see how this all plays out. He seems like the guy who's the other chess player.
Yeah.
Who wants to see how this is going to go. It's not that he doesn't say that it's a bad idea, but he almost seems a little bit more like he doesn't like when Mills says let's do it then, and like Somerset's there. He seems to pretty much go, okay, well, let's do it.
Yeah, let's see.
Let's see how this plays out, kind of thing. Even though, when you've seen Mills, in your head, you're automatically going like, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And the second they're in that car, you're like, this is a terrible fucking idea.
Yeah, you shouldn't be going
how have you allowed, like,
that.
or he shouldn't have, you know, like, they should have been like, no, we're only going to agree if that, but you know why it has to be Mills, obviously, but you're like, this is a terrible fucking idea. And yeah, I mean, and then, like, just to get there, it's the shot, the way it's shot visually, the huge helicopter kind of like shots, the scenes over the top. You know, John C. McGinley in a helicopter.
John C. McGinley. I keep saying John C. Reilly. This
John
whole
C.
thing.
Reilly.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said McGinley.
No, I was saying because when I saw it, I just read John C. Reilly, and I was like, I don't know he was in this film.
I mean, John C. Reilly is a very good dramatic actor in his own right as well. He's a fantastic actor.
Which is why I was thinking
he would fit in perfectly well. But no, we're talking about Scrubs.
Yeah, that's what I didn't realise until I saw him. I was like, oh, it's that John C.
Yeah,
not the other John C.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah, John C. McGinley, he's in a couple of the scenes, kind of thing, and is the one talking over the top of them, like referring back, which. Yeah. Even those parts have a really good, because you've got these like conversations that are ongoing like in the background, so he keeps the noise in and of a lot of that stuff and the ring in, which just adds an extra kind of chaotic kind of, you almost feel like this is just one big chaotic mess that's happening in front of you, and like you're watching almost this downfall, and you're like, so why are they in the middle of the desert? You know, if it's your first time seeing it, if it's your next time, if you've seen it, you're almost just really like analysing like the road. You're anticipating. One thing I found, I was looking at the road because I was waiting for the van to appear, because I remembered the van coming down the thing, and I was like, just how good, because obviously they're thinking, shit, someone's coming to try and get Doe out of it. You know, they're trying to get him out. There's a prison break or something like that.
Prison break, yeah.
You know,
it's Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
You know, he's here to save him.
He's there for family, you know, the bald heads.
Yeah, the bald head boys. But they have the great conversation about, like, you know, about how they're not innocent.
Yeah.
And how it is, you know, like a disgusting man, and the disease spreading whore and all of that stuff. And there was a line that I really liked, which was, only in a world this shitty could you even try to say these were innocent people and keep a straight face. You know? And I thought it was so good. And it's just about, I thought that whole conversation that they're having about, like, why he was doing it, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it is. The conversation is what drew, because every time, like, when you've got like Morgan Freeman jumping in the car to run off after the van, and then, but that's the point, is weird. Like, when he stood there, it's kind of like, you know, Mills is just acting straight away and just telling him basically to shut the fuck up again, you know, again. Somerset's just kind of listening, occasionally kind of chiming in, but mainly just kind of listening, just kind of, he's anticipating something that's happening. Like, he's really anticipating, like, what is coming here, what is happening. Whereas Mills just seems so drawn in by Doe.
Yeah,
That he's so
locked
honed
in,
into
so
him.
engaged.
So that's why I think it even ups the ante, because you've got the tension that is building in the conversation, that then we have the one person who's almost the sane person in this situation is then rushing off to be the one, you know, and it's the weird, to rushing off to do that kind of part. You almost wonder how it would have played out differently if Mills had been the one to find.
That's what I was thinking. If
like,
Mills
how
had
would
done
it change?
How would it have been?
Because would he have just rushed back over and shot him? I think there would have been enough time. But I feel like in that situation there would have been but obviously then Morgan Freeman's character wouldn't have known what was in the box, so he wouldn't know why he's rushing back over, kind of thing.
And I mean, he doesn't really necessarily need to rush over. He's got a gun. He could have just shot him from.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
It's the weird. This is this is the bit that makes it worse. So obviously you've got the communication going over the top. You've got the car coming back in, but the climax of it all, obviously, we don't see what's in the box. We talked about that. Lots of people believe they do, but he opens the box. He's disgusted straight away,
which is fantastic.
Which you would be.
It's such a good, such a good design choice, because I think with a lot of the stuff in this film, there is that, and as it ratchets up and up, there is that temptation to be like, okay, we'll show the head.
Yeah.
Even if it's just,
he just picks
it
it up
and
it's like waving her head
waves
around.
it and puts it in. Even if it's just like a flash.
Yeah.
You have that temptation to show it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Being reserved and not doing it, I think, is such a masterstroke in just building it.
It just is, because you see that thing, and because you get a quick shot as well, because he opens it and reacts so quickly, it's almost in your head. I think that's where it comes, because you think, as you cut it, as if the box, but you're actually seeing the box from almost more the side. You're not actually seeing it from a head above a head.
You're seeing the head.
You're sort of seeing it from. But I think because it's a quick reaction, Morgan Freeman's stellar acting makes you believe that you've just seen that head in that box.
He makes you believe.
He makes you believe it. But then it's this part when you've got this tension building with Kevin Spacey character where he is just goading and talking, and he starts talking about family, and he starts talking about that, what's coming, and he starts talking about these things, and Mills starts being like, what are you on about? And he starts slowly bringing in that information about
ever so slowly
his wife comes into the conversation, and then he reacts straight away to the idea that his wife is you're talking about my wife, But the interesting part is, and that's what I was thinking about, if it happened the opposite way around, or just the way it plays out, is because you have, obviously Morgan Freeman communicates with above to be like, he's got the upper hand. Yeah. John Doe's got the upper hand. But the weird part is that it's almost him going back over that is what pushes it over.
Yes.
Because it's his reaction. It's the fact that we get almost, you've had, for a lot of the film, for most part, he's reacted to things he's saying, but he's a lot of the time been that stoic, kind of, held back. But this is the one part when he's trying to be, but he can't hold it in, and he keeps having little reactions, and Mills feeds off of I was about to say Somersault. Somersault's action.
He feeds off Somersault.
Somerset's, reactions. Yeah. And the fact that he's rising to some of the John Doe bits. He's not rising to it, but the fact that he's trying to make him shut up is it confirms everything for Mills. Yeah. So when he's saying what did you find? He's like, what's in the box? What's in the box?
What's in the box? It is great.
And he has that, but it is just I didn't remember how good it is, the fact that you keep seeing Mills in this kind of almost childlike form. Yeah. Where he's broken down to this kind of infant-like actions, and he keeps staring at Somerset to tell him that it's not true what he thinks is going through his head. Yeah. And no one says it properly out loud. Is the fact that it's not it's almost teased about what is in the box, but it's not
John Doe says it. That is their head.
Yeah, but
eventually,
but it's it's really played around before it's fully out there, kind of thing. And then he's like, what is going through my head right now? I want you to confirm that that's not true, and things like that. But that's what's great. But you almost wonder if he'd stayed over there, he might have said it was in the box, but there would have been no he would have just been like,
There's almost no confirmation.
You're fucking with me.
Yeah.
The best thing would have almost been for Somerset to take that fucking box and get out of there.
Or just
go
go,
off,
nah,
get out of there, kind of thing. Have someone else come to do like no confirmation, no thing. So at least it could have been like that. But him going back over allowed him to finally be like, I wouldn't have believed him, but I believe you. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I mean, I guess at the same time, Mills being there and being like, "What the fuck did he just drive off?
Why did he just get that man and drive off?
Why did he just hold
that?
Like, it's because he just saw your wife's head in a box. That's not true. Wait a sec. Actually, what? Well, why did he drive off? Is that why he drove off?
And then he drives off after him, and he's just there, But it is good. It's a good twist.
It's a really good twist, but I don't think from anyone watching the film and knowing what Mills is like, I don't think you see it playing out any other way.
Any different.
Yeah. There's no way he's not going to do it. You know exactly who Mills is.
Yeah.
You know exactly what he did. There's no way that he's not, I mean, like, the fact that he just shoots him is the only thing that's almost like, to be honest, I'm surprised that Mills doesn't cave his fucking head in or something, do something more violent, start going at him. But obviously, he's reacting quickly and out of passion kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he becomes Raph.
I seem to, and this is the thing again, not watching it in so long, I seem to remember him obviously shooting John Doe. John Doe was like, I was envious of your life.
Because he's envious.
He's envious. But then I wonder what the original plan would have been before he bumped into Mills, because he was doing these killings before Mills. So I wonder what his original plan for envy and wrath would have been. Just aside.
Oh, you mean John Doe, like before any of this kind of happened?
Before any of this happens, because
before Mills came into the picture, basically.
Yeah, it seems like once he starts looking at who's investigating,
it's almost as if when Mills appeared, that made his plan become like that. He
saw
the plan now, like he's seen.
Yeah, and he's like, I was envious. I tried to live like a normal life, couldn't do it. Had to kill your wife, take her head. And I seem to remember that when Brad Pitt shoots John Doe, I seem to remember the snipers taking him out, and then it's like they all died, and it's like the collection's complete. But I guess the ending is that he's just broken him, and he's turned this man who kind of wanted to help people, wanted to save people, and I don't want to say like he's optimistic about the city, but he definitely feels like people can be fixed and it's worth fighting for, and he's just broken him,
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the interesting thing about this ending is the fact that you can take it as in, like, obviously, he's that new, like, the new guy and broken and destroyed him, and man, he's fucked.
He's cooked.
He's going to be fucked in his head for God knows. But the interesting part I always find with this ending is also the fact that Somerset was a man who was done.
Yes.
And after this, he's not done anymore.
No.
As if he's almost found that he has to be, like, you've got that kind of, we need to have someone there to kind of have a balance to this. And almost as if he thinks he is that, like, balance, of how all of this plays out kind of thing, that he suddenly realised, or whether it's just that he's like, I'm probably going to need to be here to make sure that guy doesn't turn into a serial killer.
Yeah.
Make sure that guy doesn't start killing people, to be there for him. So when he says, like, I'm still around, he's gone from being adamantly, I'm done, I'm out of here, to all of this has suddenly weirdly changed his perspective, on the world and the way that he
and maybe it's the idea that, if he gives into that apathy and going and just ignoring the sin and ignoring the city, then maybe John Doe wins again. Because not only has he kind of broken Brad Pitt's optimism, but he's then pushed away. I mean, he was leaving anyway, but he's kind of driven him away further and confirmed that actually, like, if people are apathetic, they'll just leave and just go.
I mean, because obviously the final line is the Ernest Hemingway quote, as in, Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for."
Yeah.
I agree with the second part, which kind of, I think, does have that nice summary of the, not only the Somerset character, but also the idea that he thinks that the world is a shithole.
Yeah.
But he also seems to have this true belief that no matter what happens, you've got to keep going.
We got to keep going,
like kind of thing. And that's kind of the weird idea that. And I also kind of that's why I mean it's a weird kind of that it has that kind of moment of actually you've made this man keep going in the darkest moment. He's realised whether it can't get any worse than this. Yeah, you know what I mean? Or I need to keep going with this. You know, it's that odd, you know, moment. But I do think that, you know, that ending and even, you know, I really liked that quote. I was like, oh, that's really. Don't think I paid attention to that last time, but you know, and like I said, it's an ending that couldn't be checked. Like it literally, like the studio, their solution. One of their solutions, because I believe there was a different rewritten script, but that wasn't the one that was ever followed. But the studio's other solution that they said to David Fincher was to have John do away with Mills. So John Doe would have actually killed Mills, and therefore then Somerset would have killed
John Doe.
Which doesn't feel nearly like a powerful wrath.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, wrath feels like it needs to be a truly, like, angry thing like that. And I just... As much
feels
as
justified almost.
Yeah, as much as we've built a lot of character in the week that they've been together, I just don't see that Somerset, it just doesn't match with the character that we see on the film at all. It doesn't seem... John Doe could have got up and strangled Mills to death while he was on the other side, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I still think Somerset would have come over and been like, take him in, guys. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he would have suddenly started blasting.
But even if he did start blasting, it wouldn't be a blast of wrath.
Yeah.
It would be like, you've just killed a police officer. I am justified in killing you.
It's just the fact of, like, wrath is not, like, in my head, is not just revenge. Wrath is pure anger, pure hatred, pure, you know, you need to push someone to that kind of point in my head. And that is, you know, what happens to Mills is exactly that. It's like a perfect representation of what wrath would be in my head. If Somerset had just gone over and like basically shot John Doe, it would feel revenge-like, but not wrath. He wouldn't have major hatred in his heart enough to be like that. I don't think it just doesn't work.
Yeah, but then it's hard. I would even say it's hard to argue revenge because he's just like if he's just killed a police officer, you're kind of like he's duty bound to do it. And, he's not going to be like
And it also takes away the whole, like, as I said, I really like the helicopter part over the top because I think it adds an odd, like, urgency to everything as well. And that also wouldn't work. If John Doe got up and basically tried to kill, you know, Mills or did something to Mills or whatever, like, if within that scene, they would have had to completely change the setting and the setup of it all because otherwise they would have just been like, shoot.
Yeah, just shoot
Kill him.
Shoot him.
Yeah.
Any sudden movements, just shoot him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like it would just not have been there. You know, it sounds like it's a bit of a too Hollywood ending. It doesn't work out because I've read that there were a couple. So there was one where Somerset shoots John Doe.
Yeah.
There was one where
I always thought of that ending purely because almost because of, like we just said, I always thought of the idea that Somerset would possibly shoot him so that he didn't win. Purely for that reason. So Mills, that's the only thing that always plays in my head, that I almost think that was the only other ending that somewhat would have worked, purely on the fact that actually I could almost see that Somerset was the one person who would see ahead of it and go, like, he's going to do it. I know this guy. I said from the second I met you, I knew you. I knew what you would do. I knew you weren't ready for this. I'm going to, you know.
And he does say...
a head in a box is going to turn anyone's... like, to be like, your wife's head and, like, dead baby is going to turn anyone to go, like, fuck yeah.
But he also does say, like, in that scene, like, if you kill him, they'll kill you. You're like, they'll fry you. You know, you're done. So John... Somerset killing John Doe is kind of like, well, actually... Like if I do this, then I take the fall.
I'm done anyway.
I'm done anyway, and you, your life's gonna be shit. Yeah. But you may have that chance to be like, actually, there are people like this, and I need to fight against them. Yeah. So I think they could have maybe did.
I think the one thing that works that is like as you've perfectly just described it. That works from a thematically weirdly works as a perfect ending. In the way that like it all kind of comes together, and with what it's set. But the problem with that is that also it means that two characters are not completely destroyed, which makes it less messy. And what the reason it's such a messy clusterfuck of what's left behind, like they've said about like the idea of a sequel, like people have said because it's been left behind, which is a terrible fucking idea.
Oh, it's terrible.
David Fincher said he'd literally rather put cigarettes out in his eyes than ever even think about that film.
Yeah, but then when you look at what the planned sequel was, you understand, you know.
but that's what. But at the same time, it's like I think from a character perspective, you can see somewhat that it would be interesting to know what Mills.
Yeah.
You know, how did Somerset react to that? Where does the story go next? And I remember that because I can't actually remember this. I remember that Brad Pitt had no interest at all, and Morgan Freeman was possibly like almost considering an idea, and then they brought him a script, and the script was just like another murder case with Somerset, and I can't remember.
I think there was some psychic scheme in it, where there's a psychic killer, and then Morgan Freeman also gets psychic powers. So they ended up making it. Yeah,
that sounds fucking. That just sounds like something like
that's fucking ass.
Floating around with their like powers, like fingers on heads,
and especially in early 2000s.
Yeah.
You know? So it actually ended up becoming a film called.
They just released X-Men. We should make a 7 sequel. But it's like X-Men.
Yeah, make X-Men. So it did become a film called Solace in 2015, and it ended up being done, and it was generally negative reviews from critics. It was supposed to be ass. Anthony Hopkins in it. It's
okay.
Colin Farrell, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So some good actors in it. Just absolute ass apparently.
I feel like I've actually seen that film.
Yeah,
but
it wouldn't surprise me. You've watched everything. It's so weird. So some of the other endings were that. So obviously Somerset kills Doe. One where Detective Mills kind of shoots Somerset to stop him from killing Doe, and then one where they end up.
That sounds like the one. I'm just going to shoot you.
I'm just going to shoot you. And then one where they have a race against time to save Mills' pregnant wife, and then one where instead of her head in the box, it's a dead dog.
Oh, I did. I have heard the dead dog one. That was one of the studios. Like, could it maybe just be a dog?
Whose dog?
Whose dog?
Like, someone's dog.
Someone's dog.
Someone's got a dog in this city.
And then they turned around and went, actually, no. People will care more about the dog than they will Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, we can't do that.
For some reason, when you said Race Against Time, my brain went to something like The Flash.
Yeah, like they're
like speeding through the city. I don't know why my brain went there with that. All of those endings just do not. Only the first one is the only one that makes sense in a way, but doesn't leave everyone in a disaster zone, which is perfect for the style of the film as it is, in the kind of depressed, like that nothing works out in this world kind of thing. Everything's kind of somewhat broken in this world, you know, very with the David Fincher style that people know and love. You know, and it, you know, as I said, like it was almost his perfect like setting off point of showing like the kind of director that he could be, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But as you can tell from the whole thing that I especially, but I feel you as well, think that it's a pretty excellent film.
Oh, I think it's excellent, man.
Yeah.
And so this is the the 30th anniversary, I believe.
20th. It's 20th, isn't it?
Is it?
Or 25th? Well, we mixed that up. I had this all set up in my head.
September the 22nd, 1995. Yeah. So 30th anniversary.
Is it the 30th anniversary? Am I just mixed up in my head there?
Yeah, it is, because I was in 92 and I'm 30, I'm going to be 33 this year. So, yeah.
It is fair. I don't know why. Where did I get 20?
Where did the years go?
I said 20th at the start of this episode.
You did.
You didn't correct me then.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know when this film came out. I knew it was sometime in the 90s.
I knew it was 95 and I never did the maths. I just went with 20th because I thought I saw a poster that said 20th.
That was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah. That's mad to think 30 years old for that film.
It's a banging film, man. It's fucking class.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's... You know,
my brain, the only 20th we've done is Shaun of the Dead. So my brain mixed
where,
up 7.
Maybe that's where the brain is.
They're very similar films.
They're kind of too similar. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's such a fantastic film. I'm really glad we chose to cover it because I haven't watched it in so long, and despite the fact that it's a film that I think is so well done, it's so put together. it's not really one that I find myself watching often. You know, there are some films that I will kind of like routinely watch once a year, once every couple of years. But I genuinely think, I remember, like we said at the start of the episode, watching this on DVD maybe like early 2000s, and then watching it again maybe like 2015, and then probably just not watching it for no particular reason other than it just fading in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is like one of those films in my head of where I don't. There are certain films that I no longer probably go to, maybe because they popped up so often. But this is the kind of film where I can imagine for people this was one when it was more TV based, as in live TV, where they were like, if this film was on, it'd be like, yeah, I'll watch that. I'll watch it if I was on. But it's not almost a film that you just like. It's the kind of film that would have been on all the time back on TV at one point. But it's not the film that you now like seek out. Although, to be fair, when I was looking up like reviews and stuff of this film, I saw plenty of people that said, "This is my rainy day film." I mean, everyone's got their choice. I mean, fair play, but it's a dark one for your.
I mean, it's fitting. It is rainy. So.
Playing out your scenarios in your head.
Yeah, to play out.
What would you do if your partner's head was in a box?
You just love it, you know.
Okay, well, I think that is our. Finally, we've hit our Seven discussion.
Yes, we have. Well, I mean, come and let us know your thoughts on Seven. You know, your favourite sin, maybe, and you know, I meant
which is your favourite sin? Tell us tell us all the sins that you've done recently. We are a confessional.
Yes, give us a week worth of sins. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button, leave us a lovely review, and we will see you next week. Take care, goodbye. If you feel like sinning, remember, don't do it, because there is somebody out there who will punish you in the most horrid and horrendous ways for this, and then people will just watch your body. Don't worry about it, just don't sin. You're fine. See you next week.